Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and welcome back to another episode of the Heart to Heart podcast. As always, I'm your host, Gregory Hart, and today I am joined by another stand-up comedian, one that I've been watching on social media, YouTube, throughout the past couple years. It's been one of the comedians I've wanted to talk to and interview and go through his career and what it took to be the type of comedian he is. He's been known as the crowd work king. He has put his own specials on YouTube. He's grinding. He's going across the state. He's going across Canada, and luckily he's a local Canadian just like us. I'm excited to talk with him today. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Jeff Leeson. How are you, Jeff?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. I
Yeah, it
appreciate
sounds
it.
like you've been on the road quite a bit lately.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on the road right now, actually. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
See, I was just like, as much as I've watched your content over the past few years, like I always find your clips like it is I had enough intimidation wanting to do my first stand-up act. Like I sat here in my living room, walk around in circles, re-saying 7 minutes of material 1,000 times. And then I like started watching your content, and it was like the amount of crowd work that you do is actually mind-boggling. Like it's something that I sat there, I thought to myself, I'm like, where did he build up the courage to originally start talking to the crowd like this?
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice. So, I would say the easiest answer or best answer would be it came after years and years and years and years of just constantly doing stand up. I certainly did not start with with crowd work. I did like 10 years probably of just straight regular stand-up comedy, setup, joke, punchline. I mean, I dabbled in different types of um sort of different styles, I guess, like storytelling,
Yeah.
one-liners, clean, dirty, all that kind of stuff. Uh, the the crowd work stuff really started organically, and it started with like, hecklers and stuff like that. I just, for whatever reason, um, I think probably just being, I grew up in a family that was like, it was a ball busting kind of family,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in a nice way, not like make you feel like shit, but like you had to be quick, and you had to fire back, and everybody was funny, and everybody could kind of roll with it.
Yep.
So I learned that skill set as a kid. And then, as I was doing stand up, if somebody would yell stuff out, or a heckler or a situation would come up, I was just kind of, I guess, naturally more comfortable with dealing with that. Not to say that it was always great or even good, but it was just like a comfort thing. And so it kind of started becoming a little bit more and a little bit more of the act that I was doing. And it would be a lot of my setups would be like a question about something. Um, and then and then it kind of grew from there. And in like 2009, I think it was, I almost quit stand-up comedy. I was just like,
Well,
I'm kind of done with this. I had sort of I had been doing the same act over and over and over again for years and years, and I was okay. I was a decent opening act. I could probably feature or open or middle, whatever you want to call it, at most clubs in Canada or the US, and be certainly passable and be okay, but nothing, nothing anybody would remember, and nothing that was like, made anybody want to see it again. It was very forgettable, but I was
that's fair.
okay, and I passed. But yeah, it just got to a point where I was like, I'm always on the road. I can't, I'm not making any money at this. And like, I don't know what the next, like, I don't know, see a way to move up here. I'm like, I'm okay and I'm getting by, but that's about it.
Become
And,
exhausting.
yeah, yeah. And it was like, you're saying the same words and they're getting the same response, or sometimes nothing, sometimes something.
Yeah.
It was really, yeah, it was really just like I started to really think about like what could be next, and I sort of started dabbling in like TV hosting stuff, and I looked into some radio jobs. I mean, I still wanted to do something where I was speaking for a living or whatever. I didn't want to quit and be an accountant or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
good call.
I knew my job wasn't, I knew my life, what just didn't, my lifestyle and who I am, it just didn't vibe with like a 9 to 5. So I knew that, but I just didn't know what else it was. So I had a friend of mine that was not a comedian. He came to a few shows around that time, and he saw that whenever I went off and kind of did stuff with the crowd, it was getting a much bigger and better reaction than anything I would write. So I could get this reaction, and then I'd come back to my material, and it just wouldn't hit. Excuse me. It just wouldn't hit the same way as whatever I just did with the crowd. They could tell it was in the moment. It was, off the cuff, or they could just tell like this wasn't supposed to happen. And that kind of created this bigger response. And my friend was like, man, you should do a whole show of that. Or like you should do more of that, or a fair bit of that. And I was like, dude, are you crazy? Like, do you have any idea how difficult it would be to do an entire show of that? Like that would just be, it's not possible. Like I had never seen it done, and I knew how hard stand-up comedy was. I knew how hard writing was. I knew how hard it was just to get a 30-minute set, let alone a 45-minute set, or an hour. And so I was like, man, there's no way. So I end up in this kind of time where I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna quit. And I think I'm looking at doing something else. So these kind of last few shows I had, or a bunch of shows that I had, I was just like, it doesn't really mean, not that it didn't mean anything, but like it did. I'm not gonna take it as seriously because I feel like I'm on my way out, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
And
gotta say,
so
like, sorry to interrupt, but one of the most impressive parts of your crowd work and like how it started is watching you now. It's like you manage to like even like your drive into some of the towns you're doing, you're picking up enough information just from the town setting. Like I'm thinking right now, just back to like to your Netflix special where you have Sorry I'm Not Kevin Hart. It's like you
no,
drove
that's not
down
on
this
Netflix. That's not on Netflix.
I don't know why I
That's
say
YouTube.
Netflix. I say Netflix every time I
No,
talk
I
to
know,
anyone.
I know.
Just
I
seems
I
like the
just wouldn't
first.
want. Yeah, I don't want anybody thinking I got anything on
God,
Netflix, because I most certainly do not. However, Netflix, if you're watching, I am available. Or do
dude,
people watch or listen to this?
I have been so long out of recording a podcast, and I'm sitting here before this episode thinking he's got sorry I'm not Kevin Hart. Sorry I'm not Kevin Hart. Said Netflix 3 times there, and I'm like, it's not on Netflix, it's on YouTube. Pay attention. Says
It
it
is
in the
on
actual
YouTube.
episode. Perfect.
Jeff
So
Leeson Show on YouTube. Subscribe and watch the special
100%,
and other stuff,
definitely.
please.
And so
And Netflix again. I can't stress this enough. I'm
they
available. Give me a call.
all I get is Netflix watchers. So like the owners of Netflix are definitely listening to this right now. So definitely hit them up. Hilarious.
Excellent. Thank
Oh
you.
man. So I
Bookings at jeffleesoncomedy.com. I'll forward you on to the right people.
like I knew I was gonna screw that up. God, if I could bet on anything. So anyway, back to what I was saying there. Sorry, I'm not Kevin Hart. You talked about like that road being ripped up. You got to listen to his special. It's fucking awesome. But anyway, I'm realizing like you are targeting crowd work with stories and you're relating it to their hometown and you're making it really easy for the crowd itself to engage in what you're saying. You're heckling their own town, their own city. It's stuff that they can relate to. But some way, and this blows my mind, is you are posting videos of you heckling people or you doing crowd work and just bugging with the stuff they say and bringing into fact their own hometown. Yet it's still funny and hilarious to watch for someone that doesn't know a damn thing about what town you're in or the stuff you're talking about. It's still relatable and hilarious. And I think it's just super impressive that during your conversation with these people on the special itself, like talking to this guy that's from nowhere, it's just like it's funny that that all these things you have managed to make relatable to the people that live there and the people that don't.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, that's a again, that just comes from years of touring and doing show after show, where you have to make a room full of people. You have to bring an entire room full of people who have completely different lives and skills and jobs and whatever backgrounds, and you have to talk to all of them about something, whether it be you know something personal with you, but you always have to relate it to them and bring everybody in. And so that skill set just came again from just like year after year, show after show.
Yeah, and I think that specifically like with your like what set you apart and what like I think that over like the next couple of years like you are like every time I look at you you're drifting higher and higher and higher and your views on YouTube and stuff in like it's harder when you're not seeing all of the ratings or statistics like you see to see exactly how much it's going, but it looks like you like I think that over the next couple of years like this is such a unique take on comedy, like just doing the crowd work all the time. And it's you see like the best comedians out there are able to I only know this because I'm so new to comedy, but as soon as you're in a show, you're only focused to make the people that are in front of you because you're under pressure laugh. Some way you are able to make the entire room laugh, but also make the impression big enough that someone who's watching it on a computer is interpreting it the same way that the person sitting 2 feet from you. Obviously, there's always more laugh and the show is nicer to be live, but I just think it's super impressive that you're just targeting crowd work and you are not only making the people there that you're actually attacking laugh, but you're making the people who are watching the video laugh. Like it's just I know I've repeated myself kind of, but it's so impressive.
Thank you, man. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. One of the things that I really wanted to accomplish when I made the switch, and I can get back to finishing that story too if you want, in
Yeah,
a
sorry
moment, of
about
how that sort of change happened. But when I made that change into a more crowd work style, my goal, and it still is, I mean, this is the driving force. My goal is I want to create something every show that is personal and unique to those people in the room. So, like when they leave, even if, because not everybody's going to like it, that's fair. Comedy is very subjective. So, even if somebody leaves and they think, that guy sucked and I did not care for that type of comedy, totally fine. But they cannot argue that they would never see it again. It can't be redone in the exact same way, because it would have to be the exact same people sitting in the exact same spot with the exact same everything in place, which is just impossible. So, like, my true goal for every night is for people to leave feeling like that was for us, that was our show, and that was for us, never to be done again.
that. Have you that's definitely obviously a great way to take it and it's true like there's comedians like when a person's on tour yes like you're gonna have the comedians that have a set that they're trying to work on and maybe you might get a couple different jokes if you do go see them more than once in a year but most of the time they're working on the same style of set with you could go see you in the next town and see a completely different show you could be one town over and it could be completely different have you ever had like how nervous obviously I know you've been doing this a long time so I'm sure the nerves is at a completely different stand and you're probably just so used to and comfortable with what you do. But have you had the shows where you come in and you ask someone their name and they're just like, Margaret, what do you do, Margaret? Accountant. It's just like very like you're not getting much back from them. Like I feel like obviously throughout the time you've done it, you expect some kind of a reaction from some people. You're at a comedy show. When you get asked something, you're usually pretty nervous. You might screw up what you're trying to say. You might always get that. Have you had a hard time trying to pull that stuff from the crowd?
Yeah, well, a couple things. First of all, I'm always nervous before every show. And if I wasn't nervous, that would make me more nervous. If I'm not nervous for something, it means I don't care about it. And then there's a reason I don't care. Like, why am I not, what is it about this show, or what is it about this? And then I wouldn't do it again. Like if it was whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
So I
I appreciate
know
that.
I care about every single person that paid any amount of money, that decided, first of all, they gave up their night. This is what they're doing. Some of them had to travel 20 minutes outside the city. Some people are traveling an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours inside. They had to pay for gas. Some had babysitters. They spent, money on dinner, maybe a hotel for the night,
That's
whatever it may
fair.
be. So, like, to me, I um care so much about the fact that they chose to do that, and I don't want to let them down, or have them be like, that wasn't worth it. I want them to be like, every we spent this evening, every moment it took to get there, every single thing was like 100, was worth it totally. So I'm always nervous. It's a different way. You're absolutely right. It's a different way than when I was starting, because when I was starting, it was literally like, am I going to hold the mic right? Am I going to look nervous on stage? Am I going to be shaking? Am I going to be, I used to go and a lot. Am I doing that a lot? Am I pacing? Did I put the mic stand over behind me, or is it in front of me and they're distracted by it? Like, so it's a different nervous. Now it's really more about like the enjoyment of the crowd. Because I really want them to enjoy the show and enjoy the fact that they decided to do that. And then the other side of that, as you asked about the people that don't give me a lot, that happens all the time, but it's my job to take anything you say. If you're going to do this, right? If you're going to and this was like a conversation I really had to have with myself, was like, if you are going to do this as your style, you can't, there can't be anything given to you that you can't either take and make something out of or get out of easily and transition into something else. Doesn't mean everything works. I mean, on the average show, it's maybe 50-50 at best on like what works and what doesn't, but the audience wouldn't know that. It's so quick to get out of it and onto something else, or go back to something that did work, or move on,
Yeah.
or whatever. That it's covered. You know what I mean? It's the But I know, okay, that wasn't working, this didn't work. And then there's adjustments too. Like sometimes their answer is the joke, and you have to sit there. You have to sit in that and let them have that. But then you have to take it and run with it, right? Sometimes what they say is not funny at all. Then it's more on me. So I have to take that. Sometimes they won't answer questions, so I have to guess about them and sort of do my own answers and see if I'm correct. Sometimes they won't give that up, so I end up talking more. Sometimes you have to do more on the room, like, there's a weird situation or a hum going on. Like, there's so many things that can distract an audience, and you have to, for me, I really want to tap into like, what are we all thinking right now? What is the general vibe in here? And then kind of become one of them. Like, I was just one of you, and now I'm up here, and now we're going to do this together, and I'm going to lead us through this, obviously, as the guy up here, but we're all in this together, and where are we going? So, with people do it all the time. They give me great stuff that's like, hard to even top, because whatever they said was so good. And there's tons of times where I'm getting nothing, but you gotta have the ability to take that and move it forward in some way.
And I'm honestly, based on the length of career you've had and the amount of video that's out there just showing, that's the a lot of people will be very hesitant about the stuff they share to social media when it comes to some of their, like, especially like the bigger people, the people that are gonna like release their specials on YouTube or on Netflix or whatever it may go, Amazon. People are hesitant to show the
Did you
little
say
clips.
Netflix? Netflix, once again, I'm still available. I don't know if you heard that, or maybe you skipped through, but still here. Sorry.
I'm
Please
gonna,
continue.
I'm gonna cut that piece and have it put at the end of everything I've ever asked you.
Please.
Um, so with those people, like they're trying to perform that, like perfect that hour. They don't release their clips. With what you're doing is every single one of your 20-minute sets, 40-minute sets, whatever you end up doing, you could release the thing every single time because it changes every single time. Like, it's created so much content for you, and it's such a different avenue to take. Like, even just I've only done, literally, I told you I just started stand up. I literally have done one open mic night. It was so much fun. I loved it. I'm gonna do a bunch more. It's just
Where was it?
it was at the Crazy Canuck in Kitchener.
Oh, nice, nice. I did that. Is that with Sandy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sandy
yeah,
McFarlane.
yeah. Sandy McFarlane. Yeah, yeah. I did that. Rusty Nail, right? Rusty
Yeah,
Nail. Yeah, great show. Great guy too. Sandy's awesome.
Rusty Nail Comedy. Yeah, he's awesome. So I don't know why I was getting mixed up because where it was held, but the other place I'm going to start doing or try to do is Levity in Hamilton.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're
They
awesome.
actually they
Great
actually
club.
have a constant open mic, so just looking for more of those. Obviously, Sandy's just been rolling with good acts, so he hasn't really been hosting one, but that's fair. You make a lot more money on the real shows, but regardless, like just doing that single show, I where was I going with that? With how you with how you bring into consideration the fact that people have paid to come out to your show, gotten babysitters. Like I've heard this kind of reference before of how much pressure is on someone like you who sells tickets, sells a place out all on your own, showing up to these places. Like I've seen some of your backgrounds. Like if you're Canadian, you realize that you're at a lot of the um it's a specific it's a
Legion.
Legion. Yes, you're always at a Canadian Legion. I see the thing behind you. You're pointing at like the diplomas, but it
Yep.
takes it's such a different move for someone who just sits there and watches a comedian and laughs at them. It's hilarious or shits on them or whatever it may be. To sit there and think like I've only done it once. The place was filled for me. I didn't have anything to worry about, anything to stress about. I was nervous enough as it was. I can't imagine on your end sitting there thinking all these people paid to be here. I can't screw this up. It's
Yeah,
tough.
and now I'm in a very interesting position currently because I'm doing way more touring now in the US, and I'm doing like legit clubs, like better, much better, bigger comedy clubs, actual like, funny bones, improvs,
Are you doing Brea soon?
zanies. Yeah, Brea Improv February 1st. Yeah.
I
But also Hollywood Improv, San Jose Improv, Levity Live in Oxnard. Like these are clubs that I've literally wanted to do for since I was a kid, or at least found out about them in
That's
my early
awesome.
20s or whatever. So,
That's wild.
and the only way I've gotten into these places is people have started to take notice of the videos and start and I'm starting tickets like people are actually starting to buy tickets to see me now. Whereas for years and years and years, these legions and stuff you're talking about is those were just comedy nights in a small town, and we just hope people show up to see comedy. They don't give a can I swear on this?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
They don't give a shit if it's me or you or anybody. They're just going to a comedy night at their local legion. Now it's
Wow.
like people are legitimately paying money because the guy they saw on YouTube or social media or whatever, the videos they like, and now they want to go see it live. So now the pressure is even more on me because it's not only is this just a show in your town, they actually are coming for me. And that's like, I don't know if I'll ever get the hang, like get understand that is not computing to me at all. People come up to me at the end all the time and they're like, hey, I watch I've watched a bunch of your stuff, or I like what you do or whatever, and I'm always every single time shocked at everyone, one after the other, like, how did you
That's
even
awesome.
hear about this? How do you know about this? Why do you care? Like why do you care? You know what I mean? Like and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that in
No,
like
no, I get
I
it.
spent 22 years with nobody giving a shit at all. And in the last 9 months, all of a sudden people have seen these clips and videos going like, hey, I enjoyed what you've done, what I've done for, since I was a kid. I started at 14 years old doing this. This is like
That's fucking
this is
wild.
all I ever wanted to do, right? So it's like, yeah, I've just done I've done it so long with with just being the guy at your local legion, that it's all brand new. So that pressure I've always felt, just to be the guy going last. Now it's the guy they actually for the most part came to see. Now it's like I I want that to be as good as possible for those people who specifically are there for me.
Jeff, this is the shit I podcast for. This is the shit that motivates people like that were like you when you were 14. Like sat there and whenever they did normal shit, they're like, this is not the stuff I want to do. They're miserable doing it. They're not pushing towards the stuff they want to do. You've been doing it for what'd you say, 22 years?
23, yeah. This is
23
20, like,
years you've been grinding
yeah,
at this. Like, and right now
yeah.
you're at the point where you're growing, you're blowing, you have people that are buying tickets for your stuff directly for you. To hear you say stuff like when they come up to you and they're like, I can't, like, I saw your videos, like that's what got me here, like all this kind of stuff. Like that's the shit that pushes people who have a dream to do something. People that want to do comedy, people that want to act, people that want to do whatever it may be that's outside of the typical 9 to 5 job because they just can't take that shit. It is super awesome to hear you talk about that, and just to be so excited and still not believe, like, when someone comes up to you like that, like I can't believe I made it here. Like, do you ever have those ones where you sit down and you're like you almost have like imposter syndrome of like, why, like, how did I get here? What happened?
Oh, dude, well, that's happening a lot now. Like, just for example, 1 week ago, last Tuesday, I did Zany's Comedy Club, which is in Nashville,
Nice.
Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
So Zany's, for anybody that's not in comedy, is like it's they have a couple of different. There's one in Chicago, one in Nashville, but they're like legendary clubs. Like, if you look on their wall, every
All
comedian
the
you've
big
ever
comedians.
heard of is right there. They've been there. They've done a show there. They've done
Yeah.
multiple shows there. And so for me now, not only am I there, I'm not showcasing to be there. It's literally my show. The only reason they're open on that night is because people bought tickets to see me in Nashville, where I've never been,
Wild.
never done a show, and
That's
not that
so
it was
awesome.
sold out by any means, but there's two levels. The first level on the floor, basically totally full of people that are all, that have all come specifically again for a show of mine in a place where I have always wanted to be. Just like if you asked me when I started, as a kid, 18, like once I started to kind of really take it seriously, I started at 14, but the first few years I was like in high school and kind of doing it, very, very part time, because it's very difficult, obviously, when you're a teenager
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like I didn't even drive for the first little bit. So, um, but once I really like 18, 19, 20, when I started to really know more about comedy and, getting into a lot more, just understanding it a lot more. I mean, Zanies has always been on a list of mine of like, boy, wouldn't it be cool to play there? So that was just literally last week where I'm like, I can't believe I'm sitting right now in this green room about to go out on this stage that I've dreamt about for 20 years of my life, that is now about to happen. And that also happened, that's happened several times. That happened in Boston back in October. Um, that there was a situation also at this theater in Wisconsin where it was like it's the most people we've had so far on this tour we've been on basically since September. And it was like 300 and something people, and 300 and something people showing up for a show that they know that, like, they're there because I'm there, is like that is not, it's never, so I don't think I'll ever, it doesn't matter how many people, I don't think I'll ever be like, you know, oh yeah, this makes sense, because it doesn't, because it was so many years of not that, and like maybe people show up, maybe they don't, and if they do, they don't care who's there. That it I don't know if it'll ever feel like normal to me at all. So it's a constant feeling of like, how is this, like, how did this happen? How is this possible? And how is it all these people liked just what I was doing for fun, basically, as my job. But I mean, we did the videos and filmed it, and we just started filming everything starting back in 2017, thinking like, I don't know where this will go or what we'll do with these, but we'll just film every show and see what happens, and just all across Canada, and then and now to be more in the US is like every day I'm like, how is this happening?
Dude, for some reason, like, as you're talking about this stuff, you're firing me up. Like, I've like I have the like only within, I gotta say, like, I'm not huge into this. Like, I've loved comedy my whole life. I've never really had a thought of wanting to do it. Always had like, you always hear this from people who want to be a comedian, but whatever. Always had those friends that said, "You're the funny one, like you should do stand up, you should try it." Doesn't mean that you're gonna be good at it, doesn't mean you're gonna be funny at all in a true situation of being on a stage. Had a pretty decent open mic, like us oh my gosh, now I'm gonna forget the guy's name. Sandy pulled me aside, which is one of the nicest things a guy could do, especially on your first open mic, and just said, like, you're very confident, your jokes were good, keep working on it, work on your material, would love to have you back. That's a fucking spot in the very first time I'm there that made it me want to come back. Not yes, certain people can bomb and bomb and bomb and still keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I don't know if I had that in me. I wanted to have enough balls just to get me to the stage the first time and at least try and say that I tried and do my best. But having someone like that come aside and talk to you after and push you to go forward, that's the kind of stuff you're doing right now. Like you talking about the fact that you didn't think you were going to make it. You put so many years into it. You almost gave up. You found a different way to do it. You kept grinding that way to do it. You pushed and you're at some of your dream spots. Like I have the thing now where like the Comedy Store in LA, the Hollywood Improv that you're talking about. I interviewed Brian Monarch last episode. He hosts, or well, he doesn't host. He's actually a comic that does put together 2 shows a month, or it might even be a week, but with like Andrew Santino, Eliza, David Spade, Dane Cook. Like he works with all these guys every week and puts together these shows, and he's in the lineup every single week. Like hearing from him and all that, like it's just cool to hear from you and hear about the stuff you've pushed for. And like, yes, maybe it was a little later in your career, but you kept that grind and you kept going, and it's hella motivational. This is not a motivational podcast. It's usually me shitting on myself or talking about bullshit, but like it's awesome to like hear you talk about it, man. Like it's cool to just hear someone that grinded and pushed themselves through and you've got to where you want to be, and it's motivational as hell.
Well, thank you, man. That's very nice, and I certainly, um, it's a definitely an odd time. Like right now is a very interesting time, but it's very bizarre in a lot of ways, just because things are so different than what it was for so long. So, it's yeah,
Have
it's
you
one of those things like, what's
have you
that?
done the Wilbur?
No, I have not. I know that's in Boston. So no, I haven't. But what's very interesting about that is, um, it's obviously a dream spot again,
For
and a
sure.
very like legendary place. Everybody, not everybody, but like a lot of people know it, even if they're not in comedy or
Yeah.
entertainment at all. And certainly in the Boston area, it's like very, very well known. But I did a comedy club in Boston, and then I did a one that was in Foxborough, which is like New England, kind of just outside, and then another show in like Westport, Mass, which is really close to there as well. So they're all in this like sort of area you could draw from if you did one show. And I had sold enough tickets that basically, so recently, I don't know if how much you know about this, or I whatever, but I recently also got signed by an agent in LA, that is like taking over bookings and stuff. And so when we were talking about the Boston stuff, they basically brought up like the next time, possibly the next time, or one more time at the club, and then the next time they feel like we could go to the Wilbur, which was like, when I heard that, I'm just like, what? Like, again,
That's
you
awesome.
know, it's
I think
just,
I saw this guy. Is he on your website now? Like he would have been at the bottom of your website.
yeah, yeah. There's two of them, JJ and Russell from 33 and
I think
West, which
Russell's the one that was at the bottom, I think. Or maybe they both were, but
yeah,
I saw
they're
Russell
they're both they're both on there, but Russell I think is at the very, like, if you went all the way to
all the
the
way to the
bottom, I
bottom of the
think he's
page.
there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they have been absolutely amazing to work with so far. And because again, up until now, it's been all me. Like I've done every booking, every contract, every routing of every tour, every piece of marketing, every promotional material, every interview, every like I don't do poster design or editing because those are just, I don't have the skills for that. And I was too busy basically with the sales side, but they came on board, and their expertise really is in like routing and booking and routing, and making sure that I'm not like on one side of the state and then the other side of the state and then the bottom and then the top, like
Nice.
5 hours or 7 hours a day of driving. It's
Yeah,
like
that
they
makes it
can
much
route it out,
nicer.
and they've been amazing so far.
Good for you. That's got to be like did you reach out to some people to try and help you like that, or did they start targeting you with seeing you grow?
Well, here's the thing, man. For easily 15 years, a few times a year, I would reach out to every booking agent that I could find that was worth looking into, because there are different levels of booking agents, and you do have to be very careful who
I think
can
I've
help
heard
you and
this.
who cannot, right? But over the years, I know who is worth your time and who you want to target. For 15, easily for 15 years, at least once a year, I'll go on, not to say I email every one of them every year, but like once a year for a chunk of the year, I'll pick a few and I'll try again. And then the next year, I'll pick a few and I'll try again, right? Um, so, this went on and on with no, I mean, sometimes people would write back with a polite, thanks for emailing us, but no. Sometimes a majority of the time, just nothing back. I mean, and I'm talking hundreds of these, right? Like hundreds a
Damn.
year for 15 years. And every once in a while, somebody would give me a little nugget like, hey, we think you're funny, but you don't fit our roster. Hey, we think you're funny, but we just signed a whole bunch of people. Hey, we think you're pretty good, but we're too busy with festivals right now. We're too, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
And so um I uh I listen to a lot of different people that are very motivational. Like Tony Robbins is an example, but I mean, I've listened to his stuff, but I don't necessarily just mean him. I mean like that type of
Yeah. Yeah.
person. Gary V. I don't know if you know Gary
Yep.
Vaynerchuk, right? So like these people, they all, if you, not to say you're going to agree with every single thing they say or how they say it or whatever. And I understand, some people don't look at it and go, some people look at it and go like, this is all bullshit or whatever, right? But if you take little bits and pieces of each one of them, or sometimes there's just something they say that will strike you and will make you like think about something in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So there's
definitely.
a guy named Jim Rohn, who was kind of the start. He kind of was the mentor of like Tony Robbins and all the guys that kind of came after him. He was like the original guy, or one of them at least. And he talked a lot about value, and this word value kept coming up. Value, they all talk about like, it's one thing if I'm asking somebody to book me, they are more valuable than I am, because I'm asking you to book me to help me move up the ladder. And so a few years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, probably right before the pandemic or maybe in the pandemic, I basically made the decision that was, um, obviously they're not seeing the value when I'm messaging them or emailing them. They're not seeing anything in me that would be of value to bring me into their booking system. So I need to do something to bring them to me, and something where they reach out to me. So I will stop reaching out to them altogether. I stopped doing that in probably 20, I don't know, 19 or maybe early 2020. And I said, I'm just going to focus on building my value. So
Yeah.
whatever that means, whether that is social media followers, but what it really means in comedy is tickets. If somebody knows you're selling tickets, that's value. And then they can come and help you with their value, which is like routing or booking or getting you into better places, because now you're selling tickets. And so start putting out
Wow.
content. We started doing, full length YouTube, then TikToks, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, Facebook long version Facebook, two full YouTubes a week, 5 YouTube Shorts a week, 5 Instagram Reels a week, 5 Facebook Reels a week, every
Wow.
week, day after day, consistently, right? And then all of a sudden, a few of these videos start to take take flight. I get in at a really good time on Facebook Reels. I was very early to the game on that one when they first started. I put all just boom, 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 started going consistently. Next thing you know, within probably a 4 month period, I had over 50 million views. I had way over 100,000, more than 100,000 new followers, like majority of those in America. And what happens about a month later? Here comes 2 emails from 2 bookers that both now want to work with me, both of whom I've tried to work with before, who had no idea who I was because they didn't even read the email because it wasn't worth their time back then. And now they've emailed me to say, hey, we've noticed, we've noticed you, right? And now there's a value there. And so now I'm having these conversations and ultimately, signed on with 33 and West, who have been without question the greatest partners that because I've had certain people come on board before in certain capacities, but nothing like this. And they showed their value immediately as hopefully they've seen mine, which is how I got to them in the first place.
Do you have any fun yet just writing back to some of those bookers that like you bugged to try and get you some spots before? Just saying sorry, recently been signing with a lot of people, don't have time for you right now. You seem pretty funny, but I'm not interested. Did you decide to go back the opposite way because no one listened to you and you were interested?
No, if anything, the what I would write to those people is thank you, because by not booking me or by saying no, or I had a club owner a few times tell me people will never pay to see a guy do all crowd work, so stop doing that. And I don't I owe them a thank you because every single time there was a no or a not respond, or you're not what we're looking for or whatever, it made me work harder to push myself further in order to get to this spot. So I wouldn't want to look back on it with like a fuck you. I would rather look back on it and say, wow, thank you. Because if you had to book me, maybe if I had to listen, maybe I start doing some, a bunch of material I don't care about, and it's just not going to go where I want it to go. If you do book me, maybe if you bring me on too early, maybe I get dropped by an agency because I have no value, and now I quit comedy because I think, well, this will never go anywhere. So I look at it in a totally different way, where it's more a gratitude, and I'm grateful for. Not in the moment. I got to be honest with, like, in the moment, it stings and it hurts, and you're like, feeling all kinds of ways. But looking at it now, I can't look back on it with anything other than just pure gratitude, because that they had to do that in order for me to take all of that shit and all of that stuff and put it into where I wanted to go, which is ultimately, you know, right now, basically.
Man, you were sitting here staying in the positive. You're gonna have one of these Michael Jordan movies here in the future on Netflix. If you are listening, don't forget to pick up this guy, get him on there, get a
Please,
special going,
Netflix,
get the movie
please.
going.
I'm still available.
Like you're gonna have this like guys told me like crowd work ain't gonna work, like this isn't gonna work, and it's just gonna be you walking out into a stadium. That's when shit hits the fan. That's when it's gonna be awesome. I
Same
gotta
guy,
say,
same club owner told me, so I would did his club, and you do it all week, right? It's a Tuesday to Sunday. He wasn't there for any of the shows. He came in on Sunday, um, and watched the show. And at the end, he goes, "If I ever see you do all crowd work in my club again, I won't pay you at the end of the week." Now, what he didn't know is on the Saturday night, the late show, which can get a little rowdy,
yeah,
there
I want to
was a
booze.
situation where um this woman was off to the side, and she was a nuisance all night for everybody. She wouldn't shut up. She was constantly like ruining the show, ruined everybody's set basically. And I obviously I can deal with that, but if you keep going and going and going, the club has no choice but to kick you out. Like, you can't keep the show can't just be about one person. So two or three times I shut her down. The crowd is totally on my side because they hate her, and they know she's ruined the show. Finally, I get a third thing with her. An applause break happens. During the applause break, the security guards the security of the club goes over, and they have to take her out. Now, while they're doing that, and I see it happen, I know that they got to get her from one side of the room to the other side of the room because the door is on the other side. And I know she's not going to go quietly. So I lead the audience in a na na, you know that song, na na
Yeah, yeah,
na
yeah.
na, hey,
Hey,
goodbye.
goodbye.
So
Yeah,
I start leading them. They all get in. It's a packed room. They
yeah.
all get in on it, and they are like, na na na, goodbye. Like they are just landing hard on the goodbye.
Unreal.
So at first she won't go. Then finally they get her up. We're singing the entire time. Okay. They get her out down the stairs. They got to get her down the stairs and out of the whole place, let alone out of the showroom. Okay. Now, after the show, the security guys come up to me and they go, "We really, really appreciate what you did there, because what you don't know is while she was being kicked out, apparently she was an Asian woman, an Asian, very young Asian
Yeah,
woman.
yeah.
Nobody would know that. She's off in the corner. It had nothing to do with anything. But she was starting to yell, this is a racial, like basically starting to say, like, this is because I'm Asian, which it most certainly is not. It's because you're a
Wow.
fucking nuisance, is what it is about, right? You're disrupting the show. Nothing to do with anything else other
Yeah,
than you're
100%.
drunk, right? You're a drunk heckler at a show. So
Yeah.
she apparently is like, how dare you treat an Asian person of Asian descent like this, blah, blah. But nobody can hear it because we're
Yeah,
singing,
we're chanting.
nah, nah, nah. And the security is like, ma'am, this has nothing to do with that. It's because you've yelled out. You are still causing a problem. Nah, 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 nah.
Yeah.
Goodbye. So nobody
Wow.
hears it. So the security's thanking me, right? They're like, at the end of that particular show, I get a standing ovation from the audience, right? Cut to the next night where I have to meet the owner who saw none of anything happen. And he's threatening not to pay me just because I did a show of all crowd work. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't like, hey, that sucked and you know, whatever. Great show, great crowd, great week of shows, but just because it wasn't his cup of tea or whatever, it was like, you know, if I ever see you do that again. Now, in the time, I wanted to fucking knock that guy out because I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, you have no idea what
Ignorant.
you have no idea what happened last night. You have no idea what happened all week.
So
These
ignorant.
shows have been going great. These crowds are loving it. He had these comment cards that he takes very seriously. And I'm like, read the, you know, in my mind, I'm like, read the comment cards. All I said to him was, okay, no problem. I've never worked his clubs again past that point. And I knew in my head, like, I obviously can't work here of, because this is, you know, this is what I do and this is my brand. And like, you can't just say that. But anyway, so in the moment I'm upset and you know whatever, but now again, now I look back on that, and when I left there knowing I'm not going to work those three clubs or two clubs you know, every year, those two
Yeah.
weeks, that made me work harder. Okay, well, I got to fill those 2 weeks, you know, so now I've got to go, you know, where else can I go and where else can I do in these towns, in these cities, what are some other venues, and you know, stuff like that. So I look back on stuff like that with pure gratitude.
I gotta say, like, first off, good for you. Hilarious that you did na 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 na. Like that's so like just in the moment, her walking across the entire place for you to pull that into you after having to deal with her shit the entire time, and while you're trying to like keep the crowd kind of with you. I'm assuming that after you guys all joined together to cheer her on, I'm sure that you had so much crowd confidence after that to be with you for the rest of your just like conversation and talking. Like the respect probably went a little bit up based on someone like that ruining it. But
Yeah, and I mean they were mad, like they did not like her. Like it was very, sometimes you get the people who are hecklers and the crowd likes the heckler. I had a guy they threw out
wow.
in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and they booed the security for kicking him out. And I said to the security, I he doesn't have to go. I'm not requesting he goes. If you're kicking him out, that's fine. That's your call, but that's not my call. They brought him back in and he got a huge ovation because the crowd liked
Wow.
him as a heckler. He wasn't disrupting the show, and I could work with him, right? They knew that. They knew that he wasn't a problem. She was a problem. Everybody knew it. And she was in the dark in the corner where nobody could see. You couldn't even see who it was. They just heard this fucking voice keep yelling stupid, she would comment on every joke or every time. It was just horrible.
Oh,
So when they kicked her out, I mean, they were so excited, and we all were. I mean, everybody, the staff, the crowd, everybody came together as like, yes, get her the hell out of here now. None of us want her here.
before I go back to the heckler, you were talking about that specific club owner. And one thing that I've seen that's been pretty consistent throughout the people that I've interviewed as comedians and the comedians that I listen to's podcasting, I'm a big Segura fan, Kreischer fan. I like those guys. Like, that's my type of comedy I like. But I've heard about this all the time. And I think one of the biggest and best changes that has ever happened to comedy is that comedians themselves have had such a bigger control over their own comedy. Like
Oh
social
yeah.
media has changed it dramatically. Like you created your own stuff for how long? Like getting your own product out there, building your own brand, people coming to you looking to sign you up, not some Joe Schmo guy who's not even a fucking comedian working for some network coming to see you saying this isn't my type of comedy while the entire place is blowing up having a good time saying you don't make it was bullshit. I think that the whole thing's changed dramatically. And this club owner stuff, like I've heard there is some shady club owners out there, people that are super like don't watch your shit, still shit on you, have a hard time getting paid. I've heard about it. It's nice to see that this change is happening where you are not now reliable or rely on this club being available for you those 2 weeks every single year. You've made your own shift in your career. You can have people come out to you and ask you to do your clubs now. I think that's a huge change for comedians and it's changed the entire game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, social media, YouTube, all of that, that was the shift. That really helped people be able to take
For
way
sure.
more control. People argue all the time. Now it's more wide open, so anybody with a camera phone or anybody with a uh, whatever equipment can have a show or but that doesn't mean they're successful at it, and it doesn't mean they're going to work at it and build it up. It just means they have the access. Like when people get mad at it, like, oh well, now anybody can do it. It's like, yeah, but to do it, to actually do it, takes so much work and so many years and so much garbage to go through. Like, who gives a fuck if everybody can do it? Not everybody's going to do it. Sure, they have access, but they might do one or two. I mean, so many people start stuff, or they put a video online, it doesn't go anywhere, and they're like, well, this doesn't work. And it's like, well, that didn't work, but maybe the next one, maybe the next one, maybe the next one. Like you're one thing away. I heard Gary Vee talking about these, I forget who the rapper was, but it was like some SoundCloud rapper that was sort of taking off on SoundCloud that was starting to do videos. And he's like, you're one song away, you're one video away from something, from a hundred
So true.
million people going, who is this? Once they see that video, they're going to want to see more. You don't want your first video going, boom, and it takes off. You want a catalog so that when something does take off, you can keep people around. If you only had one video on your channel that was like 100 million views and you had nothing else, people would go, well, I guess that's all they have, and now you've lost them, right? It's like you have to build something for them to see, and then hope, I mean, and just keep putting it out. Consistency is the name of is the entire game. It's consistency. If you stop or you take a break, I mean, a vacation is one thing, but I mean, like a break. If you're like, 5 years go by and you haven't done shit, and then you pick it up again, it's going to take some time. But if you consistently work at it, and this is anything, this doesn't have to be comedy. This could be fucking woodworking or me- being a mechanic. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's consistency every day, a little bit every day, as much as you can do every single day, or as little as you want, or as much as you want. And over time, something will happen. Something has to happen. Anything you put work into, something has to come of it. That does not mean everybody becomes famous or is selling out Madison Square Garden or whatever. It just means something. If you keep going, something surely has to happen, because otherwise, how could it not? It's the people who quit, walk away, or quit and don't walk away. There's a lot of people who have quit comedy, but they still kind of do comedy, but they're not willing to do any of the other side stuff or anything else to really help them. It's really those people that it's if you quit, the guarantee is it'll never happen. But if you keep going, something can at least happen at some point.
Jeff, like I have respected and appreciated that. You hear that the most from comedy, and maybe it's because I take that in a lot more than I take in other things. But comedians are the ones where they bust their ass for 10 years or 12 years or 20 years or 5 years. And they hit that spot where their stuff starts to connect, like you say, that happens with social media, where all of a sudden you hit that 100 million people just saw you do something, or 10 million or a million people just saw you do something, and you see the growth. You see comedians that were funny for 10 years or did it for 20, had amazing comedy for 10, finally hit it at year 20. Now you see them start to blow up. And it's what's pushed me for this podcast. Like I've been doing it for 2 years, did it when COVID started just as a thing to do at home. I really wanted to talk to people and felt like it was kind of weird. Just message them, say, hey, want to chat? You have no fucking clue who I am. I felt like this was just an easier way to do that. But it's turned into a thing now where it's like, I do want to grow this. I do want to not have a 9 to 5 job. I want to do the thing that actually brings me happiness and makes me more motivated to do the things that I love in life. And talking to comedians and hearing about their grind and push to actually grow and get to their 10 year, their 5 year, whatever it took for them to get to that next step, is don't quit, stay consistent, stay at the grind, and hopefully and potentially one of these times you're going to hit and your stuff's going to go. I got to say it's this was a comedian podcast and it's been motivational more than anything.
Well, that's great. And the other thing is like enjoy it.
Yeah,
You have
definitely.
to enjoy it. You have to love it. If you don't love what you're doing, whether that is stand-up comedy or podcasting or anything, if you don't love it, you won't put in the required amount of work or effort or years of, you know, nonsense because you don't love it. You're never gonna, if I didn't absolutely love the thrill and the feeling of going on stage and making people laugh and changing their mood or changing their I had a lady, honest to God, last week, no joke, and this is crazy. This lady comes up to me, and she comes to a show, Tampa, Florida, and says, "You saved my life." And I'm like, I
What?
most certainly didn't. I don't know if you have me confused with a doctor that looks like me around here or whatever, but I did not. Well, she had I believe it was a stroke, and ended up in the hospital and was, getting very depressed. She found my videos, and that changed her outlook on, changed her mood, I should say, not her outlook, but she started laughing. She enjoyed her time in the hospital obviously as much as you can, but
Yeah, yeah.
she was on her phone, on her computer, watching these videos, and was excited for if I was ever going to be in her area. All of a sudden I'm coming to Tampa, and now she's at a live show, able to meet, and then I met her, we got a nice picture together. I move on to talk to some other people, and I see her, she's crying like, you know flooded with tears, because this was an
Wow.
emotional time for her. And for me, again, it's like those type of things, which are very rare. I mean, that's a very rare situation, but that type of thing is like, man, when I was 14 and all I wanted to do is make people laugh, never in my wildest dreams would I expect a lady in Tampa, Florida, to be going through the worst time of her life. And something I have done for my whole life just for fun and enjoyed would help her in some way feel better. Like that means more than, anything else. And it all was from this crazy thing I started doing as a
Yeah.
kid. It's like total sort of mind fuck in a way where you're like, I can't even believe that we're having this conversation right now.
Dude, that's wild. Like I 100% first, like comedy is such an escape outlet for people. First, like whether or not they're doing it with their friends, trying to make their friends laugh, or saying outrageous shit, or watching a comedian. It takes you out of what the fuck is currently going on in your life. All the crap that you deal with, or going to work, or dealing with family issues, or financial issues. That shit takes you back, like just for that 45-minute special, or that 20-minute special, or that comedy clip you're watching, takes you out of all that crap, before that time. It takes you to the situation that the person's like talking about and saying, and it's a wild thing. Comedy's crazy. Like uh, honestly, like it's a cool thing. It's cool to speak to comedians and just hear about their ways and how they're growing, and it's fucking wild. I have two final questions for you before we end this up. I can't even believe we're already at an hour, but first question
Wow.
was who is your favorite stand-up comedian? Is there someone that motivated you to start comedy maybe when you were younger? Is there someone that you really look up to now? Like who would be, if you could meet one comedian right now, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's so
Narrowing
tough.
it down.
Okay, so um okay, the best way to answer this is what started me in down the path of stand-up comedy or got me interested was not one comedian in particular. It was two shows. It was Comedy at Club 54 and Just for
Wow.
Laughs. And they were on every day when I got home after school, back to back. And everybody knew You Do Not Bother Me from 3:30 to 4:30. When I get home, I watch these two shows and then I will start whatever I have to do, homework, or if I'm going to play hockey or going up to a buddy's house, whatever. Everybody
Yeah.
knew this. You will not disturb me. So I saw the everybody who got a '90s sitcom. I saw the set that got them that sitcom at Just for Laughs, right? Ray Romano, Kevin James, um, Jerry Seinfeld, all those, whoever, there's hundreds of them, but you know who I mean, right? And
100%.
saw all of them. Plus, I saw people that you would never know that never became famous. I saw tons of Canadian comedians that went on, like, Mike McDonald, who obviously became a Canadian legend. Andrew Gross was one of my favorite um, stand-up clips or stand-up acts I ever saw in Comedy at Club 54. Do you know that name?
No.
Exactly. And he, not to say you shouldn't, he's amazing and he still does it today, but he's a Canadian comic. He's from Alberta. He was on Comedy Club 54. He absolutely destroyed. He had this bit about his wife uh, getting a bed in a bag. They were going shopping for a bed in a bag, and his wife started making illegal substitutions out of other beds and bags to create an ultimate bed in a bag and then get a discount for the bed she created because all these bags had been opened. So, but the way he did it, the way he brought it together in the story and the storytelling, I mean, I was enthralled. And I was a kid, like I was 8 or 9 when I started watching these things. And I'm just like, I was in a trance. I was like, you couldn't, there could be fire and an explosion going off right outside the room, and I would be locked in on what these guys were saying. It was absolutely, without question, something I just fell in love with and became an immediate, not only fan, it was like I'm obsessed with this. I want every piece of this. I want everything. So like that was my first introduction to stand-up comedy, and I'm so glad it was because I got to see every single style you can imagine. Carrot Top with his props, Jeff Dunham with his puppets, I'm trying to think of a musical act. Anyway, musical acts, like everything, storytellers, one-liners, every single thing you can imagine. Um, the first comedian when I started like individually figuring out what comedy is and who I gravitate to and what I like. The first comedian that was like my idol, my favorite comedian ever was Jerry Seinfeld, no question.
Wow.
I loved his show. I loved his style of stand up. I loved just his approach to comedy. I loved how much he loved comedy and made it his life. I just that was my guy. And so even though I think Jerry Seinfeld probably would not enjoy my brand of comedy because he's very much about the writing and the the art of like developing an act, like that act of you say this every night and you do it, and you make adjustments and whatever. Uh, that doesn't matter to me. I don't care. He was the guy that was like, and in my original early days, I was doing, very clean comedy like him, very have you ever noticed observational, kind of doing almost an impression of him? I always wanted a sitcom in the early days as well, like he had. So he was really um my first comedian where I was like, that is my favorite comic. Now, I so hard I can't pick a favorite. My love is for comedy. If you do comedy, I have at any level. I respect the fact that you've done it once just as much as I respect Jerry Seinfeld's been doing it for 40 years. It's nothing to do with success or where you are at. It just has to do with if you have the balls to get up there and try to make a room full of strangers laugh, I respect the shit out of that because I know how hard it is. And I know that it's not for everybody, and it is certainly not easy. And I just have the utmost respect for anybody willing to do comedy. I would say anybody willing to do any art or entertainment of any kind. I mean, I would feel the same way about musicians and um, acrobats or fucking circus acts. Like if you're entertaining, I have respect that you're even willing to try that, but especially for comedy because I just know that road. So yeah, that would have to be my answer. Sorry, it was a long-winded one, but
No,
it's a
no.
tough one. It's a tough one to it comes up in certain conversations, like a version of that question, and it's always the hardest one to answer, but that's the best one I can give you is just comedy, man.
Dude,
Comedy's my love.
I know you are so busy, Jeff, but you need to start a podcast. You are built to like don't worry, I've had my interviews where buddies of mine want to do a podcast and I ask them something, they're like, yes. I'm like, that's a great answer. Why don't you dive into it and let me hear more about it? Like interviewing you has been super easy and it's been more of like feeling like I'm listening to a podcast. I've respected everything you've had to say. Answering that question was so much more in depth than I would have even thought about it. My favorite comedian's Tom Segura. Obviously, I'm at a different level of comedians. Like we all like you see
Like
the almost like a flight of comedians, a per generation kind of like that set of comedians that go through together and grow. And you see like the main big headliner comedians, unless you're like Dave Chappelle or Chris Rock or whatever those huge guys are that never leave. But you know what I mean? Like you see them fly through, like Segura and Andrew Santino, those kind of people are my type of comedy right now. But definitely growing up, like I remember when Kevin Hart first got big and seeing his first Netflix specials. I liked them more than I liked his new stuff. Trust me, if he's in the same city as you, I will come see you. It's fine. I will make sure that my wife goes and
thank you.
sees him just so that I can be some good crowd work.
Amazing. Yeah.
Last question.
Kevin Hart is like, you know, man, like I have such huge respect for everything
He's a
he's done.
grinder.
That guy worked harder than I mean, they all do. Like you can't say one worked hard. Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, Andrew, whether you like, I mean, I know you like their comedy, but a lot of, some people don't like Bert Kreischer's comedy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They're like, oh, he's just party guy.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. That you can't say he sucks and he shouldn't be there. This guy fucking worked his ass off. The way he's, what he's doing now and where he is, and how many shows he does, and like the promos and the tickets he moves. It's like you can't argue
His
with that.
promo
You
videos
just
are
can't
fucking
argue.
wild.
He's awesome, man. They're all. I have respect for every single one of them, from those guys selling out arenas to the guys that are doing comedy for other comedians that are the only people in the bar on a Monday night.
Yeah, 100%. Last question. Where
Yes,
has
sir.
been your favorite location so far, and what is your dream location to do stand up? Your number one. I know you had said Nashville was a huge one for you. Is that your favorite so far? Is Zany's also the like what was your main dream? Like Madison Square Garden's obviously an answer, but I'm just wondering if there's one of those like authentic, original, old school clubs or even like a theater. Like is there something that just is your be all end all?
Um, all tough. Yeah, this is another tough question. So my favorite, it's so hard to pick a favorite. I've had so many amazing moments in several different cities. I've had so many cool, especially lately, like what I was saying with Zanies or Laugh Boston was truly incredible. The Funny Bone in Dayton, Ohio, just because
Yeah.
the Funny Bones are, they're legendary clubs, and I've always wanted to do that. Um, Coming up, like the Hollywood Improv and stuff like that, like those are all, there are so many on the list um, of like, that would be amazing to be there, that are slowly being checked off or have been checked off. Madison Square Garden is like the, that, that's something where if you are even doing Madison Square Garden in the first place, you've accomplished something, right?
Yeah.
And the same, it could be said for like Radio City Music Hall in New York as well. But taking those two, but obviously Madison Square Garden. So I always say Madison Square Garden because that is literally like, it is so far away from anything I would even think right now or ever. Like, that wasn't even a thought when I first started doing comedy. I just wouldn't have even let myself think like, oh, hey, someday we would do the Garden. But you know, it's like so far away from anything I would have thought possible or think possible currently, that would have to be the place where it's like, ultimately, if you're even invited to do a show there in the first place, it's like, wow, that obviously something has
A
gone well,
huge.
right?
Yeah.
Um, as far as like my favorite place, I can't pick a favorite place, but I got to film a dry bar comedy special in Provo, Utah in March of 2020, the week before everything shut down.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things where, just like Zanies and Laugh Boston and those kind of things, that was one of those things where I watched all these clips. I watched all of these like dry bar um, specials or whatever online, and thought like, man, that would be really cool to be on that stage. Like, you can visual, you pull something up and go, here's the stage that would be really cool to be on. And all of a sudden, 3 years ago, I'm standing on that stage doing this show. It goes quite well, and at the end, people are standing up for, as a standing ovation, and I'm standing there again going like, this is fucking wild. I've literally watched hundreds of hours or minutes or whatever of people standing on this very stage, and now I'm looking the opposite way than what I normally look at. And so I'd have to say that one, just because of like what it meant, and but there's so many. There's been so many amazing moments and times, and I did a special in my hometown in London at the London Music Hall. There's like 500 people there, and my mom introduced me, like she was like the introduction of the show.
It's
And my mom
incredible.
has literally been there. Like, my mom would pick me up after school and drive me to Toronto so I could do 5 minutes of terrible stand-up comedy and drive home at get home at midnight or 1 a.m. And she had to go to work in the morning, and I had to go to school. And
Damn.
so now we're on this stage, and she's walking out there, giving this introduction, and we've got all these cameras, and we've got a crane, and like a jib, I forget what they call it, jib or whatever, on a
Yeah.
fucking camera on a crane, basically, which was something I always wanted to do. And we've got these lights, and it was just like, that moment was like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. I can't believe I'm standing here uh, doing this. And my mom, this person who's been there the entire time, who, when I was a teenager, is like thinking this is a phase and I'm going to grow out of it. And I'm just a kid who kind of likes comedy, and certainly this will never, you know he's going to get a real job or something, and then going through in my early 20s, I'm sure, constant worry of like, what the fuck is this guy doing with his life? He didn't go to school, he has no backup plan, he has no real skill, and now there's 500 people that are standing there waiting, for me to film a special. Was like really cool. So, and there's lots of those. There's certainly been lots of those, but
Wow.
I would say those two certainly come to mind.
Wow. You got me sitting here like getting like emotional thinking about you, how much you did for your mom and how much she grinded for you and got you through this. And I was literally sitting there like listening to you talk about like originally starting out and like how you got bigger and you were able to like bring in that camera that you wanted and have your mom introduce you after she like just took you to Toronto for a 5 minute trash set when you were young. And I'm sitting
And
there
I'm
fly.
talking like every dude, I'm talking every week. Like that wasn't once. That was like, I'm 15 years old and we're going to Hamilton, we're going to Niagara Falls, we're going to Toronto, basically on a weekly basis, maybe every other week, sometimes multiple times a week. For me to suck, it's not like we're going there and I'm doing 5 minutes and we're leaving and she's like, "Hey, that was awesome." She doesn't even know what to say. How do you tell? How do you? Your kid is 15. He loves this and he's shit. And how do you not?
Oh
How do
shit.
you? How do you play that? She never said quit. She never said stop. You have to stop doing this. What are you doing to yourself? Why are you? She never said that. She could have so easily at any moment been like, Jeff, this, you cannot continue doing this. This is not working. And I can't continue to watch you eat shit every night like this. You have to stop. And I would have because it's my mother, right? So
Oh
um,
shit.
but she never did that. It was
Dude.
always like
Oh.
we'd be driving home and she's not a comedian. She doesn't know how to write jokes or whatever, but she's in the car brainstorming. Well, what if you called me a whore later in your set instead of early in your set? What if made fun of grandma uh, with a Scottish accent instead of a Canadian accent? Would that help? What if you opened on this? What if you
Wow.
closed on this? For hours, man, for hours.
Your
And
mom's incredible.
my mom's without question the greatest person I've ever met in my life. And I I would not be talking to you. I wouldn't be talking to anybody. I don't know what I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'd be doing now, but certainly not this. But yeah, she gave me the courage to try it. I was 14 and said, I want to do comedy. And she
That's
said
fucking
she had
wild.
recently seen somebody get heckled really bad at a club that she went to. And I was 14 years old. And she said, I can't let you go in there, in front of these adults and do this. And instead of killing it in that moment, she said, however, there's an auditorium at my work. We could set it up in a way where we could put seats out and set up the microphone. What if we invite all your friends, our family, your hockey teammates, people from school? What if we do our own show? And that way you can try this thing that you want to do out, see if you like it. And if it's for you and you like it, then we can look at going to like a comedy club when you're old enough, when you're older, when you're not 14 and gonna get fucking destroyed by, a group of heckling adults that are drunk, right? So right there, first show ever, my mom is like promoting it and helping sell tickets and sell waters and drinks at the back and packing
Bro.
this place with 50 people so that I can do this thing that I suck at, that nobody should be paying to watch. And yet, here we are, with this kid trying to do this thing. So like, yeah, I mean, yeah, without my mom, goes for my whole family too. Like they were all very supportive, but
Yeah, yeah.
without question. But my mom, I mean, above and beyond for sure. And yeah, I could never repay. It wasn't about money either. Like money you can pay back. The amount of time she worked full time. She was the hardest working person I ever saw as a kid too. It wasn't like she was a housewife or this is a single mother with no, you know, like she had help from my grandparents and stuff, but that's it. And she still got to work. She's still got to be up and in the office at 8 a.m. And we're in Toronto at 12 a.m. because I'm waiting to go on to do 5 minutes of shitty comedy. I mean, it was just like without her doing all of that shit, I would have been nowhere ever.
Man, women are built different. Like moms are built different. Like
Oh
Well,
yeah.
obviously certain ones over the others, but like you talk about all these guys that are in the trades, they work so hard, they come home so tired. It's like, yeah, the mom goes to work, does that, and then takes care of the kids and makes dinner. Why don't you chill out? Like, oh
Yeah.
man, I literally listening to you talk about all that stuff had me sitting there envisioning in my mind going and doing levity, getting my second show in, getting my third show in, getting my fourth show in. And I can sit here for weeks and just sit there and say, I'll do my 7 minutes. Then I'll come home and I'll pick apart the 7 minutes that didn't do well, change a couple jokes, go do it again, change a couple jokes, do it again, try different 7 minutes, make sure I'm doing more than just one 7 minutes, try and grow it, try and change it, try and advance in it. And it's stuff that like I sit there and I think about all the time. Like I drive, I'm on the road a lot for work. And the entire time I'm on the road, I record voice notes in my phone, doing my 7 minutes, doing my 7 minutes, doing my 7 minutes, doing my 7 minutes. It's something I'm excited to do. And this podcast itself, like I did my first show end of last summer, still haven't done another one. This podcast today, talking about your career, talking about everything you did to push through, has me so fired up to go to another 7 minutes. So thank you so much for first off taking the time out of your day, especially when you're on the road, to come and sit down with some random kid in a small town. Normally I say a small town in Ontario, Canada. It's much easier when you're talking to someone that's also from Ontario, Canada, so they at least understand. But
Absolutely.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially with your growth. I hope you know that I reach out to the guests that I talk to, not ever thinking they're going to share it, not ever thinking that's going to help promote me, not ever looking for the clout or feedback. All I want to do is talk to people who have grinded, done it. I enjoy their stuff, and the conversation today was absolutely over any of my expectations. Thank you so much for your time, and I really hope to do it again someday.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you reaching out. Sorry it took so long. I know you reached out a
Hey,
while ago and things took a while to come together, but I appreciate that you got in touch. This was awesome, and I wish you the best of luck, man. Keep going in stand-up comedy. I hope to talk to you again a year from now, 5 years from now, and see your growth as well, not only with stand-up but with the podcast here as well. And I wish you nothing but the best, man.
thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. If anyone is looking to reach out to you or see your content, your special, what is the easiest places to reach you? Is it just at Jeff Leeson?
So no, the best thing to do, honestly, is go to jeffleesoncomedy.com. And then that has links to like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram,
Or
TikTok, all that stuff. It's either at Jeff Leeson Comedy or at Jeff Leeson Comedian on social media. And then YouTube is the Jeff Leeson Show.
and I've tried all those. And if you Instagram Jeff Leeson or look it up on Facebook or do you have Twitter? No, it wasn't Twitter.
I do, but I never use
It
it.
wasn't Twitter that it auto populated. But as soon as I put in Jeff Lee, you populated immediately. Like you're coming up automatically. So it's not pulling some guy from Kansas. it's pulling
Good.
you up immediately.
Good.
But
When I built my first website, when I was like I think 18 or 19, I was buying the domain and jeffleeson.com was taken. And it was some dude that just had pictures of him with his cats. That was his whole website. Website. We're not talking about a Facebook page or an Instagram. We're talking about a fucking website, Jeff Leeson
hey,
Comedy or
hey.
jeffleeson.com. That was his site, and I could never get it. And I still don't have it. It's jeffleesoncomedy.com is my site. And I don't know if he still owns it, but I can never get my hands on
Jeff,
jeffleeson.com.
jeffleeson.com.
Yeah.
Holy
I
shit.
haven't
People with
checked
their
it in a
cats.
while, so I don't know if he's updated
Oh, that is fucking
his new
hilarious.
cats. I'm sure those ones are dead now. But anyways, and I cannot stress this enough. Just one last time, Netflix, for the love of God,
Yeah,
please, I'm
please.
available. Give me a call.
Yes. Give Jeff a call. Get him on there. Jeff, really appreciate it, man. I wish you all the best. Good luck with the rest of your stretch in the States there. And definitely will be at your first stadium show. So don't forget that.
Thank you, man. Tickets will be available for you at the box office.
I really appreciate that. I can't wait to see you on Netflix. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks, man. You too.